Howdy geographers, it's time to talk about well-being. Can we help the bottom billion? Hopefully. Some learning goals for you today. You're going to know different definitions of poverty. I think we've already been looking at that a wee bit. And you're going to be able to interpret a map. The poorest billion. Right. So, absolute poverty is below a specific level, yeah? And we could say that specific level is when you can't get enough food or clean water. We have 1.2 billion people in the world who are in this situation every day. Sad. Out of 7.7 billion. Relative poverty, if you remember, is being poor compared to other people in your community. So in Australia, being below the poverty line means earning less than half the minimum wage. So whatever the minimum wage is, if you're earning less than half that, you're classified as being below the poverty line. But of course, you still got enough food or clean water, so you're in relative poverty, not absolute poverty. Chronic poverty is another definition. That's when you are poor for your whole life or for lots of it. Like a chronic illness, something that you have for your whole life. What are some negative effects of poverty? Well, there are many. Hunger, malnutrition, being discriminated against, being ignored in politics, having less access to healthcare and education. Sad. So here's just a little couple of definitions. Absolute poverty, where you can't afford basic necessities. Relative poverty, yeah, just like the Australian definition, 50% less than the average median income. The criteria is not changed by economic growth for absolute poverty, but it is for relative poverty. Yeah, if the average income goes up, then what's classified as below the poverty level will also go up. So where are these 1.2 billion people? Have a look at that map. What do the colours mean? So the countries that are in green or deeper green, do they have lots or few people living on less than $1.90 a day? And the countries that are in deep red or dark pink, do they have more or less people living on less than $1.90 a day? This is like Dora the Explorer. You got it, yeah. The countries in green have less people have a lower percentage, yeah. And the countries in pink and deep red have a higher percentage of people living in absolute poverty. Here's another interesting little infographic showing you poverty in Australia. So there you go. For 2 adults and 2 children, that's the household income of less than $841 a week. Now, if you were living in Sub-Saharan Africa or India, that'd probably be heaps of money, but in Australia, you wouldn't call it heaps of money. You'd be in relative poverty. Okay, there's some reading for you to do. I want you to read chapter 9.9 from the Jacaranda Geography Alive 9 textbook, Geography Alive 10 textbook. I want you to answer these short, simple questions. What is chronic poverty? What are some negative effects of poverty? And what is malnutrition? Include the questions in your answer so when you look back you know that it makes sense. Right, 1. Chronic poverty is. 2. Negative effects of poverty include. Here's a map activity. Check out that map, go to that site, and I want you to answer these questions about the map. Answer all these questions in your exercise book. Question 3 is not a trick question, but it does require a few steps. Yeah, because the map shows you percentages of population. So if you could give the exact figure, You might have to figure out what Australia's population is as one of the steps in answering that question. That is my hint for you. Here's a video. What causes poverty?
Meet Sam and Ruth. Sam is a 16-year-old Australian male. Ruth is a 16-year-old Timorese female. Sam lives in the burbs of Brisbane and is in year 11 in his local high school, with about 150 other boys and girls. If he's running late to school, Sam grabs breakfast from the shops on the way to the bus stop. Ruth lives in a community in the mountains of Timor-Leste. Sometimes weeks go by when Ruth can't attend her local school because she needs to work so that her family can grow and harvest enough crops for food, or because she needs to care for a sick family member. Sam's house has electricity, clean tap water, and really fast internet. Well, he wishes it was even faster. When he gets sick, Sam goes to the medical centre down the road from his house and sees a doctor straight away. Not that he ever needs to, he's heaps tough. Ruth's community has a temperamental electricity generator and a water pump that only draws dirty water. Ruth is one of 1 billion people across the world who don't have access to safe drinking water. When Ruth contracts a waterborne disease in her small rural village, there's no doctor nearby. While Sam has mastered Call of Duty, he's never been caught in a war zone in his life, though he did once see a brawl at the footy. Ruth's family has been torn apart by war. Her dad was shot in a civil conflict and her younger brother died from injuries he sustained when they had to flee their last home. When Sam wants to chill out after a busy day, he's got books to read, a TV to watch, a couch to lie on, snacks in the fridge, and an older sister to annoy. Ruth hardly ever gets a chance to put her feet up, but she loves to sit and chat with other girls who live nearby and watch younger kids play soccer with a bundle of old rags for a ball. Ruth's life is very different to Sam's, for no other reason than that she was born 3 hours north of Sam in Timor-Leste. Timor-Leste is one of Australia's poorest neighbours. On the other hand, according to the UN, Australia is one of the wealthiest countries to live in the whole world. Global inequality is complex, but at its root, it's caused by a mix of human and physical factors. Poor soil, remote and mountainous locations, landlocked areas with no access to ports and heightened vulnerability to natural disasters make difficult conditions for human well-being. Add human factors like discrimination, corrupt leaders that bring war and conflict, or sign unfair trade rules with powerful countries, and poor infrastructure that limits access to education, clean water and healthcare, and the conditions are made even harder for human well-being. The good news is that people aren't just part of the problem, people are also part of the solution. Poverty and spatial inequality can be addressed and is being addressed. In 1990, 171 out of 1,000 children born in Timor-Leste died before their 5th birthday. Today, out of 1,000 children born, 57 will die before their 5th birthday. That's not nearly as good as Australia, where only 5 in 1,000 will die, but it's a whole lot better than 20 years ago. Progress is happening through increased trade, effective aid and development strategies, and the endless hard work of people in poor communities. People like Ruth and her family.
And another video. Can extreme poverty be eradicated? I don't think that's the correct pronunciation of those words, but you get the idea.
It's estimated that somebody escapes extreme poverty every 1.2 seconds. According to the World Bank, anyone on less than $1.90 per day is living in extreme poverty, unable to afford basic food, clothing, healthcare, and shelter. Absolute poverty rates have fallen faster in the past 30 years than in any other time on record. This is a remarkable achievement, but the task of taking people out of the worst poverty remains a huge challenge. The impressive fall is the result of changes in just 2 countries, China and India. In the 1980s, the majority of people in both of these countries were living in extreme poverty. But now the share of the poorest has fallen to 21% in India and less than 2% in China. Increased productivity in farms and a mass migration from poor rural areas to the booming cities enabled many Chinese and Indian people to better their lives. Asia is moving into a new phase, but can other parts of the world copy their model of moving people to factory jobs in cities? Today, more than half the world's poorest people live in sub-Saharan Africa. The percentage of the African population living in extreme poverty fell from 54% in 1990 to 41% in 2013. But in that same time period, the population of sub-Saharan Africa boomed, meaning the total number of poor people rose from 276 million to almost 400 million. The population of sub-Saharan Africa is predicted to reach 2 billion by 2050, and a large percentage of those people are likely to be extremely poor. And unlike Asia, a transformation of this region is unlikely to happen soon. Sub-Saharan Africa is urbanizing faster than any other place on Earth. But moving into the cities is not providing the same ladder out of poverty as it did in Asia. A lack of infrastructure, public transport, and essential services in many African cities prevents poor people from finding jobs and getting an education. The rapidly growing population only makes matters worse by putting further strain on resources. Millions of poor people in sub-Saharan Africa live far below the World Bank's threshold of $1.90 per day. That means it'll be harder to pull them out of extreme poverty.
Okay, your reflection activity in your exercise book, I want you to do a SWOT analysis on reducing extreme poverty. What are some strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Draw up that little grid and put at least one thing in each square. Hello, 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 or should I say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Thank you for participating in today's lesson, citizens, and never forget to keep it real. Bye-bye, hat.